For most of my life, I felt completely trapped. I was trapped by this belief that my only option was to trade my time for money, 1 hour at a time. I honestly thought that was the only path. But as a systems engineer, I just knew there had to be a better system, a more logical design for a life of freedom. What we're about to explore here is the blueprint for that very system. And listen, this is not a collection of tips or some get-rich-quick scheme. It is a structured, engineered process that I designed to build lasting financial independence. And today, I'm going to share that blueprint with you.
To really understand this system, I think you first have to understand who built it and why. My background isn't in finance. I never worked on Wall Street. For my entire career, I was a systems engineer. So you might be asking, how does an engineer end up creating a financial framework? Well, it's because for most of my life, my own financial story was probably a lot like yours. It was a messy, complex problem that needed a structured solution. And that's what we engineers do. We design solutions.
I was just stuck on a treadmill. For decades, I worked for a salary, and I truly believed my time was the only resource I could ever sell. I had absolutely zero financial education, so even with a good salary as an engineer, I was essentially living paycheck to paycheck. Every single dollar that came in already had a destination: the mortgage, the car, the bills, you know the drill. The language of financial independence, words like assets and cash flow, they just weren't even in my vocabulary. I was just trying to keep my head above water.
Now this timeline, this is where everything changed for me. For years and years, the system was the same. Trade time for money, simple as that. But then, around age 45, I read a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it just sparked this massive change in my thinking. It wasn't about some hot investment tip. It was a fundamental shift in my entire consciousness. I realized I didn't have to quit my job to start building something. In fact, my stable engineering salary, it wasn't a trap. It was actually the foundation. It was the capital I could use. So I started applying my engineering brain to my own money, systematically learning and acquiring assets on the side. I started building my own escape route while I was still working.
And this quote, this really says it all, doesn't it? I wasn't some financial prodigy who started investing at 18. I came from the exact same mindset that traps so many people, this belief that the only way to make a living is to work for someone else. My journey is proof that this mindset can be completely re-engineered at any age. It's not about where you start, it's about deciding to operate from a different set of plans. You just need the right blueprint. Okay, so let's dive into that very blueprint. First, we're going to unpack the core idea of the entire system, a mindset shift that honestly changes everything. Then, we'll walk through the three-stage architecture: consciousness, resilience, and growth. I'll show you what those stages actually look like in practice, and we'll finish with the single most important first step you can take, starting today, to get on this path.
The entire golden path rests on one counterintuitive but incredibly powerful idea. It's a strategic philosophy that completely reorders the way most people think about money and freedom. It's the principle of FI first. That's financial independence first. Before we even begin to talk about getting wealthy, we have to talk about becoming independent. Let me show you exactly what that means and why it is so critical.
We really need to get this distinction right. On one side, you have wealth. This is what most of us are taught to chase, right? It's a big number in a bank account. It's a snapshot in time. But here's the thing. It can be incredibly fragile. Think of a high-earning surgeon. They might have wealth on paper, but if they stop working, that income disappears and the wealth can vanish pretty quickly. On the other side, you have financial independence, or FI. And this isn't a pile of money. It's a machine. It's a system you design and build to generate freedom no matter what. It's about building a durable engine, not just filling up a bucket that might have a hole in it.
So what is financial independence really? Here's the engineering definition. It's simply the state you achieve when your passive income, that's income you don't have to trade your time for, is enough to consistently cover your living expenses. That's it. This is the moment you definitively cut the link between your time and your survival. See how this changes the game? The goal isn't some abstract, huge net worth number. The goal is a specific monthly cash flow from assets you own. That is a target you can calculate. That is a problem you can engineer a solution for.
And this leads us directly to the core strategy. We build for financial independence first. Wealth comes later. We focus all our energy on building the system for freedom. We build the engine, we test it, we make it resilient, and only then does wealth become the natural, inevitable outcome of a well-designed machine. It's a consequence, not the primary goal. So how do we build this machine? Well, it starts with a three-stage blueprint.
Now, let's look at the actual blueprint for building this thing. As an engineer, I think in systems, you can't just build things randomly and hope for the best, right? So the golden path is an architecture broken down into 3 logical, sequential stages. And this is so important. You must complete them in order. You can't skip ahead to the exciting parts, just like you can't build the roof of a house before you've laid a solid foundation. This sequence is non-negotiable for a very simple reason. It all begins with consciousness. That's the internal work you do to change your financial identity. Without this, I promise you, nothing else you do will stick. From there, we build resilience. That's the defensive structure that protects you from chaos and bad debt. It's your financial fortress. And only when that foundation is secure and stable do we earn the right to move to growth, the offensive strategy of actually building assets. So it's mindset, then defense, then offense. That is the engineered sequence.
All right, let's break these down. Starting with stage 1, building consciousness. This is where the entire journey begins, and you might be surprised to hear this has absolutely nothing to do with buying stocks or real estate or analyzing spreadsheets. The focus here is entirely internal. It's about deliberately choosing and rewiring your financial identity before you make a single financial move. It's the most important work you will ever do.
This first stage really boils down to a conscious choice between two identities. On the one hand, you have the survivor. The survivor is reactive. Money comes in, and they immediately think, how can I spend this to relieve some pressure, to feel better right now, to upgrade my life? They're always on the defensive, using money to just patch holes in a sinking boat. But on the other side, you have the asset owner. The asset owner is proactive. They see that same bonus or raise as raw capital. Their first question is always, how can I deploy this capital to buy myself more time, more freedom? This identity shift is the mandatory first step. You simply cannot build a system for freedom with a survivor's mindset.
So, once your identity as an asset owner is set, once we made that internal shift, then we move to stage 2, building resilience. Now, I call this the engine room. This isn't the glamorous part of the journey. There are no exciting wins to post on social media here, but it is the most critical stage for your long-term success. This is where we create order, stability, and absolute control over your current finances. We make your financial life unshakable so it's ready for what's next.
This stage is purely defensive. Think of your finances like a ship that's about to go on a long voyage. Before you can even think about setting sail, you have to make that vessel seaworthy. You map everything out so you know exactly where every dollar is going. You plug all the financial leaks. You build a firewall against storms with a non-negotiable emergency fund. You cut loose the heavy anchors of high-interest debt that are just holding you back. And you automate the critical systems, like savings, so they run on their own, without you having to think about it. You secure the vessel before you seek new horizons.
And it's only when that ship is completely secure, when your foundation is rock solid and your systems are automated, that's when we finally earn the right to move to the final stage, growth. This is where we shift from playing defense to playing offense. With our resilience built, the pursuit of growth is no longer a reckless gamble. It becomes a calculated, strategic expansion from a position of absolute strength. So in the growth stage, the asset owner, operating from that position of stability we just built, starts to systematically acquire or build assets that generate passive income. This is where you build the engines that run without you, the real estate, the businesses, the investments that ultimately buy your freedom. Notice how this stage rests completely on the foundation of the first two. Without the asset owner mindset and that fortress of resilience, this stage is just risky speculation. But with them, wealth becomes the inevitable consequence of a system you engineer.
Okay, that was a lot, I know. We've covered my journey from a salaried engineer to an asset owner, the core philosophy of 5 First, and the 3-stage architecture of consciousness, resilience, and growth. But I want to bring it all back to a single foundational idea that you must internalize before you do anything else. This is the true beginning of the path.
Please remember this above all else. We are not gambling. We are not chasing hot stock tips or trying to time the market. We are engineers. We are architects of our own financial lives. Financial independence is the result of intentional design, disciplined execution, and a commitment to building a resilient system that is designed to last a lifetime, independent of our active work.
And that brings us to our final thought, and it's probably the most important one. The first investment you will ever make isn't with your money, it's with your mindset. Before you analyze a single stock or a piece of property, you have to first analyze yourself. So I'll leave you with this question. Are you currently operating as a reactive survivor driven by fear and immediate needs? Or are you a proactive asset owner driven by a blueprint for freedom? That choice, that single decision, is what determines everything that follows.